Please welcome April Ripley and Kayandra Gardiner to the stage.
So they got the guys out of the way first.
No, wow, I'm so full. That was so awesome. Let's give another hand to Miles and Steve. Some great information. Well, so today we were talking about success as a mindset, and you were sharing with us your journey and some of the obstacles that you had to overcome, and your journey with a relationship and what it's like. So I know you had several things that you talked about, but can you talk a little bit more about when you left school and came back to work for what would be, I guess, a family business, again, that it already was successful, and now you find yourself working your way through the ranks?
Sure. So I attended the University of Tampa, graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting, and went straight to work at an accounting firm at the time called Pender, Newkirk and Company. It was the fourth largest accounting firm behind Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and Price Waterhouse. So that in and of itself was a lot, being in that work environment. But being in the American corporate environment really helped me to develop some business and work ethic. And in 2008, a young lady was working as our director of sales at the time. And my work permit did not materialize in the time that I wanted to, so I had to find work to do. And at the time, there was an assistant sales representative position in the company that was open. And so my mom said that maybe I should do it. I had to redo my resume, send it into HR in order to get the position. So did that. I didn't interview. I didn't have to do that, but I had to send in the resume. And I started to work remotely because I have a townhouse in Tampa. So what ended up happening was she would send over the information. I would have to work with clients, figure out what their needs are, but there was no direction. Now, growing up, I knew what it was that the company did. But how it all came together for clients, I had absolutely no clue. And so that was the biggest learning curve that I had, because it wasn't like, oh, here's a manual of all the things that you need to know. I'm going to give you training for the next 6 weeks, and you're going to then be on your own. For about 3 months after starting the position, I became a bit of an insomniac because I had to learn everything on my own. So what I started doing was, when it came to quotations, I went into our file server, started looking up at how the documents were prepared, what information correlated with what, and then I started asking questions. I never had a problem with asking questions, so I do that a lot. And so I started sending my dad emails, okay, well, what does this do with that? How does this go with that? And then he noticed that I had some aptitude from a technical perspective to be able to translate all of the technical terms into layman's terms. So for example, most people just see a speaker. They hear what's happening. Michael in the corner would have to put all these different elements together to make it all come together. And he would use things like, this is a powered speaker, but for the amplifier, we have to add, for the low frequency speaker, we have to add the amplifier in order to make that work. If I said that to a client, they'd look at me like, what did you just say? So I had the ability to just tell them, well, at the end of the day, the speaker has to turn on. There's only one way to turn the speaker on, and that is through a powered device to help that process happen. So I found my little ways to make things happen and translate tech talk into layman's term. Well, in the 5th month, the young lady no longer worked with the company. And so I had to take on more responsibilities. We brought someone else in. That didn't quite work out. But I still had to keep doing the work. And so my responsibilities continued to grow, Then I started working closer with my dad and the technicians to learn more about what we were doing. Then started building relationships with the persons within the hotels that we were working in at the time. And then it just all developed and came together.
So what you're saying is, although you had experience in learning in college and accounting, when you came into the business, you had to readjust, and you shared this in your presentation. Now, it wasn't all just numbers. I mean, going out to meet clients, establishing rapport, why is your company the better choice to do this event? And then you have to also go into an area that you may not have known so much about, frequencies and technology.
Exactly.
And I'll just put this out here for the ladies in the room, right? So it's not always considered to be a female.
Oh, it's definitely not. It's male dominated.
So here you are, calm, collected. I've got my degree, and now I'm coming back, and everything is totally shifted. Like, my balance is different. On top of, you shared with us earlier, your relationship.
Yeah.
Your relationship. So,
man.
talk to us a little bit about what it took for you to really, and I won't say get over it, right? Because it's happened, those experiences, sometimes we go through experiences in our life, and it's not about getting over it, because they're still with us the way we've been wired, right? Our way our mind actually keeps certain things. But what were some things that you did or told yourself to kind of go through that experience?
Going through that experience was rough. I was depressed. To be very honest. It got to a point where I did not come out of the house for about, 2 months, Mommy? Yeah, for about 2 months after I moved back home. But if you recall, during my presentation, I talked about getting help. Finding your circle is what helps you get through things. There's a stigma about going to see somebody. Being
like
a psychologist. There's a stigma about that. And one day, one of our neighbors, she was like, Kayandra, it's okay, you can do it. She became a part of my circle. And I finally went to go and see a doctor about how I was feeling, because I knew it was not normal. I knew that life goes on. I know that I had to get over it. I mean, I was to the point where I cried for everything. I mean, I couldn't get up without crying. I couldn't fall asleep without crying. And taking the time to go and see a therapist really changed my life. I did that for 4 months consistently. Read a book, The Openness of Forgiveness. And it was an interesting title, because I'm like, the openness of forgiveness, this makes no sense. And it was on my reading list. And it's a very thick book, about 718 pages of daily affirmations that you speak over yourself and to yourself about forgiveness. And that really helped change my life. Having my parents there to support me. I remember the first Valentine's Day after everything had happened, they gave me a gift, which was some earrings and a necklace. I still wear it every day on my normal dressing days as a reminder of unconditional love and unconditional support. So those were the biggest things that helped me get through it. And then developing friendships. And with family, they're always going to be there. With friends, you question whether or not they will be there through the thick and thin. So when I started to come out of my shell a bit and I started developing friendships, I had to learn that I'm seeing everything through my experience eyes and not through the eyes that other people see me. So I had to release that in order to build new friendships and to continue to expand my circle.
That's very good, because, to know that you're not alone. The African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And I look at that not just as raising a child, but to be there for you through thick and thin, right? When sometimes it gets really thin, and we need our friends, our family, but it's okay to seek help. And you did speak to that as well when you said it's okay to ask if you don't know.
Yeah.
And I love that because you actually learn more, I believe, in asking.
You do.
You learn a lot.
You learn a
which
lot.
is something in the Jewish tradition of schooling. They ask a lot of questions. I was listening earlier when Steve was talking, and he said he asked Dr. Monroe a question, and he said something, and he's like, okay, now what's next? And he just left it there in a way for him to begin to ask his own questions, to start thinking, critical thinking, and thinking rationally. So in that process of going through with a therapist, when did you feel you had the moment that it clicked? Like, okay, I've read the book, I've seen, and now I know that I can really move forward and continue my life in what I have inside.
When I wasn't afraid to look in the mirror. That was the biggest thing. During that whole process, I had gained a lot of weight. And when I was able to finally look at myself and be comfortable with myself, and not see the scars of what that experience had caused me. In addition, well, prior to that, when I was a lot younger, I had broken my right leg in 2 places and dislocated my knee. Had 5 subsequent surgeries. And similar to Steve, I was told I would not be able to do a lot of things. Walking, playing basketball, dancing, all of those things. So when the situation happened with my ex-fiance, it caused me to question everything about me. So when I got to a place where I can look in the mirror and accept me, that's when everything turned around and changed for me.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're sharing that what you were thinking, the important thing is that you're able to look in the mirror and you change your perspective of how you saw yourself.
Yes.
And I find sometimes that when things happen to us, the first thing that's attacked is our mind.
Correct.
And for those of us in the room that understand the importance of spiritual things, the first thing was to repent, to change our mind, how we see things. And we talked about belief system, we talk about ideas, concepts, because as they say, if you want to know a man or woman's life, what they believe, look at their life, right? So we live our beliefs out. So at that moment, it was critical for you to say, no, this is who I am, this is who I believe that I've been created to be, and I'm going to walk this out no matter what, and I can look in the mirror with confidence and say that I'm uniquely designed, I'm beautiful, and have purpose.
I think, therefore, I am.
Yes, I think, therefore, I am. Absolutely. Yeah. That was wonderful.
So it all came together.
We have been enjoying your gift that obviously has been refined all this week, because this is part of what makes this happen in our son. So this is great. You also shared about finding your voice. So in that process, and when you came back, I would say maybe you found a different voice, right? Because honestly, from where you started until that happened, you had one voice. And now, through experience in life, sometimes our voice can change or shift in a different direction. So how was that for you? What voice then did you find?
A voice of confidence. I know I talked about me being a writer, but when you write, that is, in my opinion, the most confidence that you have, because you have full clarity of thought when you write. When you're speaking, your mind is racing and you're trying to put sentences together and string everything along. But when you're writing, if something doesn't make sense, you think a little bit deeper until it makes practical sense for whomever would be receiving the information. So confidence came out of it for me. I was sharing earlier about how nervous I was with everything, and everyone's like, nervous? Why are you nervous? But it's because I'm not writing. And that's when I'm the most confident. But that translates in every other area of your life. when you find your voice. And that voice of confidence you see in front of you today, that voice of confidence allows me to work with my parents, because it's not easy in a family business, to be able to share ideas, be able to get in front of an audience and actually talk tech talk and make sense to them, to be confident enough to develop new relationships, whether it's professionally or personally. So that confidence is the voice that I found.
Well, she's doing a great job. Yes, it deserves a great job. And that is true. When you're speaking, so many things come to your mind, and I have to think that you are writing audibly.
Yeah.
So you're speaking, which makes it all the more, because you have to then say things that create these images and in person's minds. They see themselves there, or they see you there. So it's powerful. Words are powerful. Yes. Right, our ability to think, to create, and so we learned that this morning on success. Do you have any questions for me?
I do.
Right.
You've just been doing such an awesome job at keeping me speaking. One of the things that you mentioned during your talk this morning was about purpose. And given the accomplishments that you've achieved over your lifespan, when did you really discover your purpose? And when you discovered it, how did it change your mindset of moving forward?
Well, so I would say when I was younger, I was an only child for a while. So I had pretend friends and my dolls. It was quite, comical. But one of the first things that I started was I would come back from Sunday school and begin to talk to my dolls, and I would tell them the lessons that I learned in Sunday school. So I always was a little bit loquacious, right? And like I said, I never met a stranger, and everybody's my BFF. So from that, though, I think it was just, as I went through school, I started working a little bit with events. It caused me to have to, host guests or interact more with persons and event. And it just, when I came back into church, we have a church in the Atlanta area. It was different because I'm like, okay, I came from school, I have this business degree. What in the world does that have to do with a nonprofit, right? But then I realized that it was a business, right? So, income came in, things had to be allocated.
Yeah.
For expenses, there was the human resource side. And then I saw this incredible blessing, because not only was it just tangible, setting up something to get, but it was people's lives. Like, they came to hear someone share and speak into who they were inside, or came to draw out of them the confidence, the giftings. And so then I saw that this is really a huge responsibility. It's a huge privilege and honor, but it took the business to a whole different level. So, but that wasn't just when I first started, right? So that was something that I've seen over the years. I've seen people come in with counseling. I mean, whether it's relationship issues or a child who's going their own way and the wrong way, I realized the power of words and the power of having a support group, a group, a village that's there to say, we'll help work through it, we'll pray with you, we can tangibly help you with clothes when your home is burned down, or something's happened, you lost your job and you need funds to keep yourselves afloat. And I saw this community, and so I realized that I loved being a part of this community. It felt natural to give, and I think as humans we feel that to give. If we go by and see someone in distress, that sense of, do you need help? Like, I feel like I need to help you, right? Or do something for you. So I continue to just kind of talk. I remember coming to conferences like this. We were laughing yesterday because I think it was Chaz and I had this discussion. When you're younger and your parents are like, we're going to a conference. You're like, I don't want to go to a conference, But now you can see that the things that you heard, those words that were spoken, that went here in your mind, that came down, now you see them coming out, right? So I think it's a powerful thing to find that gift that comes out from conferences like this.
So that goes back to your passion that you talked about during your presentation, making sure that you find that passion and you follow that, and that gift would then work its way into wealth, which everyone money makes the world go round. That's the reality of it.
It answers all things.
And it answers all things. So we always try to chase wealth. And during your talk, you talked about instead of it being more money, more problems, it being more problems, more money. Can you talk a little bit more about, the opportunities that present itself when it comes to problems and really building wealth for any environment that you're in?
I remember hearing Dr. Moreau share, and this was at a business luncheon, right? So because it was the first time I've heard him, it's in a church setting, pretty much, but this was different. So this was a conference, and they had a special 7:30 a.m. business breakfast.
Don't we love those?
I was like, 7:30? You could have been 7:30 for business breakfast. 8 o'clock, I'm good, right? It was 30 minutes, but
yeah.
My mind there, still working on it. And he shared that every problem is a business. And that really has stuck with me. So where I see things that I go, I wish that was like this, or maybe if we could do this, I realize that maybe I'm not the only person who's thinking that way. But that means that there's a need. And if I could find out how to meet that need, or if maybe it's not me, maybe I know someone who can meet it. Because that's the other part, right, about community. It's not always that you'll be the person who can meet the need. Like if I need sound, there's no sense in me trying to figure it out. I would definitely call Kayandra. It's like, hey Kayandra, I'm having an event, need the sound. Let her gifts come out. Because sometimes, you see people that want to have it all and everything. Yeah. I'm like, it's okay to celebrate someone else and to encourage them in their gift. And it makes a stronger weave. I look at the way our hands are made, and to join them together, it takes all of them. And when we put them like this, it's stronger, and it's hard to pull apart. And so I think that's what we need to look at even in this weekend. There are a lot of gifts in this room. And many of them are already coming out. Some people have products, people are speaking, people are motivating others, whatever it is. And so I love this because it builds a community of leaders who are emerging, who are confident, or those who are working on it, but to be around other people who are. And I think that's what really hones that in. So then if there's a problem, I know who to call. Who are you gonna call? Right? I'm gonna call the person who I know can better handle it. Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So if there was one thing from your experience after you would have been named one of the most influential persons in Atlanta, that you can share with us from that experience and what it did for your life. Can you just share with us how that changed you? Because I'm sure it did with some experiences that you had.
It did. So I believe Miles Jr. alluded to this earlier. He says, never think when people come for you, they're coming for you. They're coming for your gifts. And we know the wise man who said that, right? But that was true. So people started calling my phone and was like, can you do this and do this and do this? And I realized it's only one me. And I did have to learn in my gift to where I would say, I can't do that for you. So there are times when you have to say, I can't now. And then there's times where there are opportunities, right? So there's a difference between an opportunity and an opportunity. Sometimes there are things that come along or people that cross our paths that we get one time with. But what I believe is that, for me, my personal testimony, is that the Holy Spirit that resides inside of me helps me to discern when this is an opportunity or an opportunity. So some people call them divine moments, kairos moments, whatever, but I realize that there's a reason this person is coming here. And I've turned down some things in order to help people who were not as notable. But from that, the relationships that I built have taken me literally around the world.
Wow.
So it's not always when the opportunity comes from you. The benefit that we have as believers is being able to discern, should I do this? And I think that's the next level, right? When you're starting out, you're like, I'll take this gig, I got this gig, I'll do it, and you're doing everything. As you get a little bit older, you're like, maybe not.
Maybe do a little less.
Right? Maybe a little less. But those are some things that I've definitely learned that have helped to preserve me as a person, because there's only one of us, Kayandra, right?
Don't I know it? But we always want to help so many people. And learning that sometimes you do have to say no. Just to, like you say, preserve yourself. So we want to open the floor up to some questions. I know we were having a lot of girl chat up here, but we'd like to open the floor up to any questions that anyone may have for us.
Any questions? And I just want to say this as they're coming to the microphone. For females, you know, sometimes you can get yourself in opportunities or things that you're doing, and you may feel uncomfortable sometimes, and it's okay to preserve your character and integrity. You don't have to do what you don't feel or believe is right. That's for really everybody in business. If it feels right, you'll know it. If it feels wrong, something's kind of like, it doesn't feel right. That's something telling you, like, hold off. But you can keep yourself. You can protect yourself, ladies. Yes.
Miles Jr. here. My question is for Kayandra. Couldn't wait to ask you this question. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
So coming home and working for your parents. I don't think a lot of people understand what we go through as the kids of, you know, already successful individuals or an organization. So how was the transition for you? Like, how long did it take you? Because I'm sure you came home, or let me not assume. Did you come home thinking that, first of all, okay, I'm coming from school, I'm coming to work for the family, I want to do this now, like I want these things to happen now, and I want my ideas to be implemented now. And if so, what was the process for you to transition to say, okay, maybe I need to take a step back and go through a mentoring phase with my mother and father to learn about their vision so I could tie in what I want to do with that?
Okay. So when I started working with the company was 2008. I never moved back home until 2010. So the first transition was moving home. And when I came home, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I wasn't living on my own. So I went back to living with my parents after being on my own for about 8 years. So that transition in and of itself was difficult, because no matter how old you get, once you're under your parents' roof, particularly Bahamian parents, we can just leave that there. So add to that, I had to go to work. The office opens at 8:30 a.m. And if at 8:10 I'm still at the house, you going to work today? Excuse me? Yes, I'm going to be to work. It only takes me 15 minutes to get there. So that was another transition. The expectation that you would be on point for everything at every hour of the day. My father is a perfectionist. Anyone in the room who works for Zema can vouch for this. And so his expectation was for me to always be on time, for me to always answer an email within an hour. The list just goes on. But at the same time, I'm an adult. I'm a professional. I know how to handle myself. And there was a period, there still is, because we still go through this battle daily, where we have to work through separating the father-daughter, mother-daughter relationship to the adult to adult, professional to professional. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for persons like us who go into a family business, is separating the two environments. And when that started to change for us was when I moved out of the house. And our relationship grew professionally and personally, because now there's a barrier there. There's an understanding that, okay, I don't need to watch what time of the night that you come in. I don't need to make sure that you get up at 6:30 in the morning to make sure that you have breakfast to go to work. So we were able to separate the two. With respect to putting my ideas forward and how to move the company forward, I'm a strategist. And for me, I don't put anything forward until I've completely thought it through and I've figured out the plan A, the plan B, and the contingency C. And it's something I developed when I was really young, and it's carried its way with me for all of my life. And so I didn't come in thinking that the ideas that I had, I needed to see them happening right then and there. I understood that I didn't know everything as it relates to the business, and we've gotten this far because you know something more than I do, clearly. And so I have to observe what's going on. And through that observation, it took me about 4 years from when I moved back to Nassau to really start putting my ideas forward. Because I had to see how we were doing things within the company. I had to see what was changing in our industry, how what our clients are asking for versus what we're able to provide, and how we can marry them. And so that's how we began also to work on our professional relationship. And then that's when Island Pearls International started to really take off and come about. Because even though the ideas that I had for Zaymar worked in and of itself in improving what we're doing, this element of what we're not doing needs to come on stream. And so they eventually gave me the okay to start the company. And even in that experience, there was a lot of things that I had to learn that I didn't get through my experience coming into the business in 2008. No one tells you the full story of being an entrepreneur and starting a business. Most times you hear the good side of what happens. No one tells you that the first time that you have to fire somebody is going to be the most difficult day of your life. No one tells you that even though you set a budget and that's what you want to work with, it's usually 50% off. No one tells you that the labor requirements in the Bahamas is a big issue as an employer. No, they don't tell you that. They make it sound like it is a walk in the park, it's easy, just as long as you hire the right people, you'll be good to go.
You know, you were saying that too, Miles, when I think one of the things is to remember, your parents will see you as their children. But what I noticed is, as I began to take on responsibilities, or if I saw something that was a problem, or says, well, let me work with that. I mean, I shared that this morning, right? As you work and are able to accomplish or assist them, then they give you like more rope. And then one day it's like, okay, here's the whole book, you got it, right? But it's a gradual process, and respecting who they are and understanding that forever you will always be. But I think when they see you take on, I think you shared that responsibility, you were doing what you're supposed to do, doing your budgets, looking at goals, that they begin to see you as, hey, an adult. You can do this. Like, that's what you said to school for. You've been training me all these years. So I think it's just getting responsibility, and they begin to respect you more as an adult who's responsible in business and not just their son or daughter.
Correct. We have another question. Oh, there she is.
Charo, you asked Kayandra the exact question I wanted to ask her, to elaborate on the process of transition of coming into a family business and what it take. Kayandra, I just want you to touch a little bit more.
This is my mother, everybody.
All the Bahamians in here, when she talk about the resume and how tough I am, I wanted to duck in. That. I want you to give some advice to those persons who are in the audience to understand that when you're preparing and the transition of coming from the daughter perspective into the business perspective and taking it over, understanding that that's the process and what happened during that process and how you mature during that process, because I think that's something that we can share with those persons here today.
Okay. One of the first things is nothing happens before it's time. Dr. Monroe did a teaching many eons ago. I was in children's church in BFM at the time, and my father heard the teaching where he spoke about that. And that was the first lesson that my dad taught me, that nothing happens before it's time. And it's something that we live by principally as a family unit and also in business. And the reason that's so important is because everything is process, which is something from Dr. Richard. It's about process. It's uncomfortable when you're going through process. And coming into the family business, it doesn't happen overnight. I don't know how to say it any more simplistically. It just doesn't happen overnight. And you have to trust the process. People around you see things in you that you don't see in yourself most of the time. And it is their responsibility, particularly as parents and as mentors, to pull and draw out of you what it is that you are to become. And so as I've been growing in the business from when I started to now, they stretch me. I tell anybody that I think my father in particular is harder on me than he is on anyone else, because he knows just who I am. And I say that because our personalities are more akin to another. And so if he knows what he went through from a business perspective and as an individual, and he sees certain things in me. So when he sees that I'm not responding to emails, instead of sending me another email, he picks up the phone and he gets on my case. Like, I know you're sitting at your desk, I know you're looking at something, respond to the email. So he gets on me about things like that. When it comes to my mom, it's more of the training and development in personal skills. I'm a very sweet person, but I'm also a perfectionist. And it's through her teaching me that you don't have to have it perfect to get started. You have to start. You can work out the details once you get started, but you have to start. So it's going through the process, really, and understanding that nothing before it's time. That's been the biggest thing.
That's very good. And I heard in that, for my parents, it was, they would say, you're a goldfish in a bowl, swim. Like, a goldfish never asks, like, what do you need to do? They're like, see the bowl and you just swim, because people are going to watch you, right? All eyes on you. But it's still a process that you have to go through, and in that process, I remember, Mom was really big into wisdom and teaching, and I remember reading in Proverbs, it says, don't neglect the law of your father and the instruction of your mother. And I realized that these were two different words, because fathers are kind of like that, right? They lay down the law. This is what we're going to do, right? This is what we're not going to do. And your mother comes along and says, okay, this is why we don't do this. This is why we don't go to this house. This is why we don't do this. And I realized that it's the perfect marriage. Mm-hmm. Because not only do I want to know why I shouldn't, but tell me how. We need both of those working together. People are going to watch you because they think, oh, well, this is nepotism and you're the daughter and you're coming to work. But I tell you, every step of the way, it's like double proving, right? Yes. So where you could just hire a person sort of, not family related, they come in and just whatever. Your family, they're looking. It's like a magnifying glass. Like, do you really have what it's going to take, or are you just family? But in that, I look at that as kind of a launch, right? Sort of like a slingshot, just that propels you because you say, you know what? I'm more than just family. Like, I couldn't help. I honestly used to say, I didn't choose to be born. I didn't know nothing when I came out. I cried and knew it was time to feed me. So I couldn't choose to whom I was going to be born, where, it's my gender, nothing. So instead of asking, why me, look at it as like, you know what? This is who I am.
Yep.
And let me go forward with that and propel myself, help others instead of always looking, again, as perspective, right?
It is about
victim
perspective.
versus victor. Like, I'm going to be
Exactly.
the victor in this situation.
And adding to what you mentioned, I know I speak about having both of my parents and you as well. Even in situations where you may not come from the home environment that allows you to have both parents there to help you, that's where mentors come in. They're the persons that step into the positions of those that you don't have in your life. And they're able to be the mother or father in your life and your situation to help you gain perspective, to help propel you, to help push you, to help motivate you, to help say to you, okay, you did a great job, but you can do better or you can do more. So don't shy away from developing those mentor relationships. And a mentor isn't always someone who is older than you as well, because there are persons who come into your life that may be younger than you are, but because of their life experiences and their paths, they have more to impart in your life than someone who may have lived 20 years your senior. So don't be afraid to open yourself to someone who may be younger than you and who you see that you can find a mutual connection with.
I recognize their gifts. So I know earlier you talked about millennials and they're all in their phones and doing this. I am like, look, that's your gift. Social media, please help me. I have a social media, but I recognize that they basically came out with a computer or a tablet, something in their hand that they can do. So I'm like,
Even the younger millennials compared to my level of millennial, they're different. But we have another question.
How y'all doing today? I wear many hats as a leader, from being an artist to doing things like financial work, but I'm a master procrastinator. I never miss a deadline. So what are some tips that you can give me that will help increase my turnaround time so I can have more time focusing on more important things than working last minute?
Oh, this is for
I like
me?
what you said about getting started,
Okay.
being perfectionist.
The first thing is scheduling yourself. And I say that with the idea that because you're involved with so many things, you have to put yourself in windows. If you're dealing with something from media, when you look at your day, okay, I'm going to put 2 hours in here. I'm going to take a break. If I need to come back, that's going to have to be at the end of the day. I'm going to work for another 2 hours on XYZ. And then if I need to come back to that or spend a little bit more time, I adjust the schedule. That's one of the things that helped me as a procrastinator, is blocking my time and my window. Second to that is understand that not everybody needs all of your time. When you're working on projects, you tend to have to work with at least 2 to 3 people to achieve something. If you can't say something to me in 10 minutes succinctly, write it. Because the time it's going to take me to sit down and listen to everything that you have to say, that's time from other things that I can be achieving. And starting. When you have something to do, even if you open a Word document, you have a presentation that you're working on, and you want to make your notes. Open the Word document, put the heading down. It's a start. And then once I open that document, and leave it open at the bottom of your computer. Because once you turn the computer on and you start working on other things, you're going to scroll over your window. And you're going to see that document is open. And so because it's open, that means I know I got to go back to it. So it helps you keep things going, and you jot things as you go. Technology is a great thing. Voice notes are the best thing for a procrastinator that you can do. Because as things come to your mind, you just speak it, and then you play it back. Now, if you can't seem to remember to play it back, that's another thing that I can't help you with. But I definitely would recommend using your voice notes within your phone and playing it back. Even if you just email it to yourself or WhatsApp it or messenger it to yourself, that way you know that you have to go back to it.
Because time is everyone has the same amount of time, and how we invest that time is our return. Also to that, I would say, is be careful what you promise. Remember I was sharing earlier that some things you just can't, hey, I've got this, can you help me out with this? And you look, I have 2 projects. I'm sorry, I can't, but I know someone who can. Because sometimes we get procrastinating because we feel overwhelmed with so much to do, with so much time, right? We have this much to do, this much time to do it in. So don't overcommit yourself. Sometimes, more gigs than you can really handle. And that'll help some of the frustration and procrastination, because really, it's just, you get so frustrated because you have so much and you're just like, okay,
I'm just giving it up.
I'm just leaving it.
I'm gonna take a nap.
not. And then all of a sudden people start, because it's not worth your reputation, right? To say, well, I asked you to do this project, you didn't finish it. So now your name is bad. All you get is your name. Your reputation as far as out there. It's not worth it. So balance your time. Yeah.
And take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself.